Welcome back. So now let's talk about the render settings. So in order to finalize the effect, we are required to go with the render settings. So let's take a raw render and see what we have. So if I simply click, you can see we have the direct light, hard shadows, soft shadows, indirect light, all the informations. What if we just want to have some nice, motion blur in the particles? Well, that can be possible. For that, we are required to go inside the render settings over here, and right now inside the render, that is the Arnold renderer, we can go inside the Arnold renderer over here, the tab, and over here we have the motion blur. So if you hit the option enable, you can see we have the motion blur right now, and I recommend you to change the value of the positions from, I guess, the start one frame to the center on frame. All right, and right now I'm giving a length to a fairly high value, that is a 2, which is, I guess, the default is 0.5. So let's do one thing. Let's increase the value to the 2. All right, and hit the render once again and see what we have. All right, so there are two problems. One is that the blur is way too strong, and secondly, there is a lot of noise and the jittering in the overall rendering. So how are we going to fix this? Well, let's do one thing. Let's first of all fix the overall jittering. So for that, we are required to increase the anti-aliasing samples, the camera AA. So right now it's given to the 0, which is a fairly low value. Let's increase the value to, let's say, 3. All right, now we have max 9 samples, and we are also have we are also having the filter type that is set to the Gaussian. That's pretty much neat and nice. Let's do one thing. Let's get rid of the length from 2 to, let's say, a value of 1. And now if I do another render, and here we go, quite a neat in comparison to the previous one we have. All right, if we just want, we can still dip down the overall effect. Let's say we go with the value of maybe 0.5, and let's have another render, and I think so the value of 1 was quite good. Anyway, that's your own artistic decision, but okay, let's say we'll go with the value of 1, not a problem. All right, so now we're done with the render settings. We have the motion blur, we have the camera anti-aliasing as well. All right, now to get the render sequence, we are required to go inside the rendering menu set. Over here we have the render tab. So in the previous version of the Maya before 2017 was there, we generally go with the batch render. All right, the same thing is there, but this particular option requires you to have the licensing of the Arnold, because this basically takes care of the network rendering. So we are not required to go to this. We can simply move with the render sequence. So if you wanted to render in your own particular machine, which I am doing right now, we can take the help of the render sequence. So just you need to go inside the option box, and we are required to mention the frame sequence, and over here we have 1 to 120, because inside my render settings, inside the common tab, I'm already provided the start frame set to the 1, end frame set to 120, and we have the file format also that is set to the name.hash.exe. So the name of the file is the Sandy, so it will appear like Sandy1, or let's say just get rid of this one. So if we have to read the file, we have to read Sandy dot hash, that is the number of the frame. Let's say we are at frame 30, so sandy.30.ext, that is the extension of the file. Right now I'm using the TIFF, so sandy.30.tif. all right, so the image format which I'm using is the TIFF, but you can go with the EXR as well. But as this is just a simple and the testing the raw render, so I like to go with the value of, so I like to go with the image format as a TIFF. Okay, and you can simply manage the frames. You can simply have the camera. In this case I'm just simply using the perspective, and we can also go through with the settings if in case you want the, let's say, 1280 by 720 you can have, or if you want to go with the HD, that is 1920 by 1080, whichever way you want. All right, and once we are done with the settings, we are good to go, and we can click the option render sequence and close. All right, and once we are done with this, let me show you the final render what I have, and here we go with the final render. All right, so in this case I've added some little amount of the motion blur without any much changes inside the comping package. It was just a kind of sequences that were brought inside the After Effects, and some simple duplication of the layer, and the rendering is done. All right, and here we go. So that's just all about this module. So now let's take a look inside the summary of our module. Alright, so let's have a quick look inside the summary of our module. So we have the n particle cache. Here we talk about the method of creating the n particle cache, and we also talk about the benefits of having the cache. And then we have the creation of the lights and the various attributes. We included lights like the direction light as well as the sky dome. And now we have rendering of particles with the DG mode, which is something really very important because the default evaluation mode of the Maya is a parallel mode, which is not allowing you to render your particles with the Arnold. So you are required to use the mode DG for the successful rendering of your particles with Arnold. And then we have the rendering with motion blur and the sampling. We talk about the settings of the motion blur as well as the sampling, like camera anti-aliasing and the Gaussian blur filters and all. Finally, we have the render settings and the render sequences, and with this we can able to create the interesting rendering of our end particles. All right, so with this, our module and our course, both they are finished, and I'd like to thank you all of you guys, and I hope so you must have understood the concept of this course. And final words from my side: keep learning, keep practicing, keep the learning curve high. All right, see you there in the next course. Take care.